The first time my own daughter suggested I was no longer capable of making decisions. It was at a Thanksgiving dinner I had paid for, cooked for, and hosted in the house I had owned for 32 years. My name is Eleanor Prescott. I am 61 years old. And that night, as the turkey cooled and the candles burned low, my life split cleanly into before and after. We were seated around the long walnut table in my dining room in Hartford, Connecticut. The same table where my husband Mark used to carve the turkey every year, where my children learned to pass dishes without spilling, where birthdays and graduations had been toasted with cheap champagne that tasted like hope. The windows rattled slightly from the November wind, and outside, the lawn lights cast soft halos over the bare trees. I remember the sound of silverware scraping porcelain when my daughter Claire cleared her throat. "Mom," she said, folding her napkin with deliberate care, "have you thought about what happens if you forget something important?" The room went quiet. Even my son Andrew stopped chewing. I looked at her. Really looked. Claire was 37, immaculate as always. Hair pulled back, pearls at her throat, the careful smile she wore when she wanted something. The same smile she used on clients, on judges, on men who underestimated her. "I forget to buy cranberry sauce once every few years," I said lightly. "The Republic survives." Andrew laughed, too loudly, a nervous sound. "That's not what she means," he said. "We're just worried. You've been tired lately." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not fear. Recognition. "I run a real estate company with 9 commercial properties," I said. "I close deals every week. I haven't missed a mortgage payment or a tax deadline in 3 decades. Claire reached for my hand. Her fingers were cool, practiced. "Exactly," she said gently. "You do so much. Too much. And at your age," there it was, at your age. Mark had been gone for 4 years. A sudden heart attack on a Tuesday morning. He had kissed me goodbye, promised to pick up milk, and never came home. Since then, I had learned how quiet a house could be when no one else breathed in it. "I'm fine," I said, pulling my hand back. "Eat your pie." They exchanged a look. The kind siblings share when they believe a parent is no longer in the room. That was the moment I knew something had already begun without my consent. Later that night, after they left with leftovers neatly packed in containers I'd bought, I stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the empty chairs. The clock ticked, the refrigerator hummed. My reflection in the dark window looked older than I felt. I went upstairs to my bedroom and opened my laptop. There was an email waiting. From Claire. Subject line: just in case. Inside was a link to an article about estate planning for aging parents. Guardianship, power of attorney, cognitive decline. I didn't cry. I didn't sleep either. I lay awake listening to the house settle, thinking about the company I built after Mark died. Prescott Holdings had been a side project once. After his death, it became my anchor. I had negotiated leases, evicted tenants, rebuilt properties after storms. I had learned that grief did not make you weak. It made you precise. If my children thought I was slipping, it was because they wanted me to. And I had a terrible feeling they were already laying the groundwork. The next morning, I received a call from my assistant, Rosa. "There's a man here asking questions about your accounts," she said. "Says he's family." My coffee went cold in my hand. "Which accounts?" I asked. "All of them." I told her to send him away. Then I sat very still, because I finally understood the open loop my children had placed in my life. They weren't worried about my memory. They were worried about my money. And I was about to remember everything. 2 days later, I was sitting across from my longtime attorney, Leonard Brooks, in his office overlooking Main Street. I'd hired Len 25 years earlier, back when he still wore suits that didn't quite fit and believed the law was always fair. He listened without interrupting as I told him everything. Thanksgiving, the article, the man asking about my accounts. When I finished, he leaned back and steepled his fingers. "They're testing boundaries," he said, softly, "to see how you react." "And if I don't?" I asked. "Then it escalates." The word hung between us. "What does escalation look like?" I asked. Len sighed. "Petitions. Claims of diminished capacity. Maybe an emergency conservatorship. If they find a cooperative doctor. My stomach tightened, but my voice stayed level. And if they succeed? Then they control your finances, your properties, your life. I nodded once. Good, I said. Then we prepare. That afternoon, I did something I had not done since Mark died. I drove to the old house on Ridgewood Lane. We had kept it as a rental for years. A colonial, with white shutters and a wide porch. Walking through it felt like stepping into another version of myself, the woman who thought family was permanent, the woman who trusted. I sat on the porch steps and watched leaves skitter across the driveway. My phone buzzed. Andrew. Hey, Mom, he said, too casually. Claire and I were thinking, maybe we should all meet, together, just to talk. About what? I asked. About the future. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. Of course, I said. Dinner on Sunday. That night, I made another call. Then another. A forensic accountant. A private geriatric neurologist with an impeccable reputation. And a second attorney whose specialty was elder financial abuse. I wasn't paranoid. I was thorough. Sunday arrived with cold rain and a gray sky. Claire and Andrew showed up together. Claire wore a navy blazer. Andrew carried a folder. We sat in the living room, the same room where Mark once read bedtime stories. Claire began. We love you, she said. This is coming from a place of care. I waited. We think it would be smart, Andrew added, to put some protections in place, just temporarily. Claire slid a document across the coffee table. A power of attorney. Durable. Broad. My name was already printed at the top. You planned this, I said quietly. She met my eyes. No apology there, just calculation. We're just being responsible, she said. I picked up the document, felt its weight. Then I stood. I'll consider it, I said. After I speak with my doctor. Relief flashed across their faces too quickly. As they left, Claire hugged me. Her perfume was sharp, artificial. Thank you for being reasonable, she whispered. The door closed. I locked it. Then I laughed. Softly. A sound that surprised even me. Because while they thought they were steering me toward surrender, I had already begun something else. A record. A timeline. A case. They believed age made me vulnerable. What they forgot was this. I built my life by watching people underestimate me, and I had never once let that go unanswered. If you want to know what happened when my children pushed too far, stay with me. The real confrontation was still coming. The neurologist's office smelled faintly of lemon disinfectant and fresh paper. Not the kind of place that rushed people through or handed out diagnoses like receipts. That mattered to me. Dr. Hannah Levine was in her late 50s, with steel gray curls and eyes that missed nothing. She shook my hand firmly and smiled like a woman who had learned long ago not to condescend. Tell me why you're here, she said. I told her the truth. All of it. The Thanksgiving dinner, the document, the questions about my accounts, the way my children had started speaking to me more slowly, more carefully, as if I were already fading. She listened, took notes, did not interrupt. Then she said, let's test what actually matters. The evaluation lasted nearly 3 hours. Memory recall, pattern recognition, problem solving, verbal fluency, multi-step planning exercises that felt eerily similar to structuring a commercial lease. At one point, she looked up from her clipboard. You ran a company? She asked. I still do, I said. She smiled. When it was over, she folded her hands. Eleanor, she said, your cognitive function is above average for someone your age. There is no evidence of impairment. If anything, you are sharper than many people 20 years younger. I exhaled slowly. I'll document everything, she added. Thoroughly. If anyone challenges you, this will hold. That was my shield. But shields are useless without a sword. 2 days later, the forensic accountant sent me his preliminary findings. His name was Martin Shaw. A quiet man. Expensive. Precise. Your children have been positioning themselves, he said over the phone. Nothing illegal yet, but deliberate. He explained how Andrew had asked subtle questions about liquidity, how Claire had inquired about the structure of my trusts years earlier, under the guise of curiosity. They're preparing for control, Martin said. Not inheritance. Control, while you're alive. That distinction mattered. Control meant they could move money, restructure assets, lock me out. That night, I invited them to dinner again. This time, I cooked their favorite meals. Andrew's short ribs, Claire's lemon tart. I watched them eat. Watched Claire scan the room as if measuring value. Watched Andrew fidget with his phone. Halfway through dessert, I said casually, "I met with my doctor." Claire froze. Just for a second. "And?" she asked. "He says I'm fine," I said. "Excellent, actually." Andrew smiled. "That's great news." "Yes," I said. "So there's no reason for me to sign anything." The air changed. "Well," Claire said carefully, "these things aren't always about doctors. It's about planning." "For whose benefit?" I asked. She leaned forward. "Yours. You don't want strangers making decisions for you if something happens." I met her gaze. "Then why did you already choose yourselves?" Andrew cleared his throat. "Mom, you're being defensive." "No," I said softly. "I'm being observant." I stood and cleared the plates. They left early. The next morning, Len called. "They filed," he said. "Filed what?" I asked, though I already knew. "An emergency petition," he replied. "Temporary conservatorship. Hearing scheduled for Friday. 3 days." I sat at my desk and closed my eyes. They had escalated. Which meant it was time. The paperwork arrived by courier at 9:45 in the morning. Thick. Official. My name typed in bold. Petition for emergency conservatorship. Filed by Claire Prescott and Andrew Prescott. Allegations of confusion. Financial mismanagement. Emotional instability following spousal loss. Attached with a letter from a physician I had never met. I laughed. Out loud. Len arrived within the hour. He read the documents once, then again, his jaw tightening. "They found a cooperative doctor," he said. "A general practitioner with a questionable record." "Can we challenge it?" I asked. "Yes," he said, "but not emotionally. We do it with facts." That afternoon, I signed a series of documents I had prepared weeks earlier. An irrevocable trust. Assets transferred quietly, legally, beyond immediate reach. A professional fiduciary named as backup guardian. Not family, never family. I also authorized something else. A private investigator. Her name was Simone Reyes. Early 60s, former federal auditor. Calm voice, ruthless attention to detail. "Find out why they're rushing," I told her. "People don't move this fast without pressure." She nodded. "Give me 48 hours. The night before the hearing, Claire called. "Mom," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound sincere. "This doesn't have to be ugly." "You made it ugly," I replied. "We're trying to help you," she insisted. "By taking my autonomy?" Silence. "You're scared," I said. "Yes," she whispered. "Of what?" I asked. "Of losing everything." There it was. I slept surprisingly well. The courthouse was cold and fluorescent. Andrew avoided my eyes. Claire held herself rigid, jaw clenched. The judge listened patiently as their attorneys spoke about concern and care and protection. Then Len stood. He presented Dr. Levine's report, Martin's analysis, a timeline showing deliberate planning. The judge frowned. Then Simone leaned toward me and whispered, "I found it." My pulse quickened. "What?" I whispered back. "Debt," she said. "Andrew's. Significant. And a failed investment Claire co-signed." The judge called a recess. I sat very still, because now I knew. This was never about my decline. It was about their desperation, and I was about to expose it. Stay with me. What happened next turned their plan inside out. The recess felt longer than it was. I sat on the hard wooden bench outside the courtroom, hands folded in my lap, breathing slowly through my nose. Andrew paced near the windows, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and urgent. Claire sat rigidly beside their attorney, staring straight ahead, as if movement itself might betray her. Simone sat next to me, calm as a stone. "Andrew took out multiple personal loans over the last 2 years, she murmured. "High interest, poorly concealed. He used one of your properties as implied collateral in conversations with lenders. Nothing signed, but enough to make promises." "And Claire?" I asked quietly. "She guaranteed a startup loan for her husband's company. It failed. The bank is circling." I nodded once. Desperation explains speed. Fear explains cruelty. The bailiff opened the door and called us back in. The judge returned, glasses perched low on her nose. She looked tired, annoyed. Those were good signs. "Before we continue," she said, "I have questions." She looked directly at Claire. "Miss Prescott, you allege your mother is incapable of managing her finances. Yet records show she recently closed 2 commercial leases and refinanced a property at a favorable rate. How do you reconcile that?" Claire opened her mouth, then closed it. "Our concern is not isolated competence," their attorney interjected. "It's long-term stability." The judge raised a hand. "I did not ask you." Claire swallowed. "She has help," she said finally. "Advisors. So do most people with significant assets," the judge replied. "Including you." Andrew shifted. The judge turned to him. "Mr. Prescott, do you have any financial entanglements that could benefit from control over your mother's estate?" "No," he said quickly. Too quickly. Simone stood. "Your Honor," she said, voice steady. "With permission, I have documentation relevant to that question." The attorney objected. The judge overruled. Simone handed over a folder. Loan statements, emails, timelines. Andrew's face drained of color. "These documents suggest Mr. Prescott is under financial pressure," Simone said. "Pressure that would be alleviated by access to his mother's assets." The courtroom went very quiet. Claire stared at Andrew, something like betrayal flickering across her face. The judge leaned back. "This court does not look kindly on emergency petitions motivated by personal debt," she said. "Petition denied." Andrew exhaled sharply. But then the judge continued. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter for review under potential elder abuse statutes." Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Andrew stood. "This is ridiculous. We were trying to protect her." I rose slowly. "No," I said. "You were trying to protect yourselves." The judge banged her gavel. Court adjourned. In the hallway, Andrew grabbed my arm. "You set us up," he hissed. I removed his hand. "You did that yourselves." Claire watched, silent, pale. I walked past them and into the sunlight. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt something else, because I knew denial was not the end. It was only the first crack. Retaliation arrived, disguised as concern. 3 days after the hearing, my banker called. "Eleanor," he said carefully, "we received an inquiry regarding unusual activity on your accounts." "From whom?" I asked. "Your children," he replied. "They raised questions about recent asset transfers." I smiled. "I'll come by this afternoon," I said. At the bank, I laid everything out. The trust, the fiduciary, the court decision, the neurologist's report. My banker nodded slowly. "We'll flag your accounts for additional verification," he said. "No changes without your direct approval." That afternoon, the whispers began. An old friend asked if I was doing all right. A former tenant asked if the company was being sold. A board member from a local nonprofit gently suggested I take a break. Claire and Andrew were spreading doubt, not legally, socially. That night, Simone called. "They're not done," she said. Claire met with a reporter. "About what?" I asked. "About you," Simone replied, framing it as a tragedy. A mother in denial, children forced to intervene. I laughed. It came out sharp. "Then it's time," I said. "For what?" Simone asked. "To change the story." The next morning, I sat for an interview of my own. Not about family, about business. I spoke about rebuilding after loss, about women over 50 building companies, about resilience, about autonomy. I did not mention my children. The article ran 2 days later. Eleanor Prescott, 61, expands holdings despite family loss. The tone was confident, sharp, admiring. Claire called me that night. "You're humiliating us," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm surviving." Andrew emailed. "You've gone too far." I did not respond. Instead, I met with Len. "We should finalize the will," he said. "Yes," I agreed. We reviewed everything. Beneficiaries, conditions, safeguards. Andrew and Claire remained listed, but with clauses, clear, specific. Any further attempt to challenge my competence would result in exclusion. Permanent, I signed. As I left Len's office, my phone buzzed. A message from Claire. "I didn't know about Andrew's debts. I swear." I stared at the screen, then typed, "You still signed the petition." The dots appeared, disappeared. Nothing else came. That night, I sat alone on my porch, listening to the wind move through the trees. I thought about the children I raised, the adults they became, the distance between those two truths. I had won the hearing. But I hadn't won the war, because people who believe they are entitled rarely stop when told no. They simply look for another door. And I knew exactly which one they would try next. The next door they tried was public sympathy. The invitation arrived by mail, heavy cream paper with raised lettering. Claire's handwriting on the envelope was careful, almost formal, as if distance could be bridged with stationery. Claire Prescott and Daniel Moore request the honor of your presence at their wedding. I stood in my foyer and read it twice. The date was 6 weeks away, early June. The venue was a historic estate outside Newport, Rhode Island, the kind of place people rented when they wanted photographs that suggested legacy. Len saw the invitation on my desk 2 days later. They're inviting you so they can say you were there, he said. And if you don't go, they'll say you refuse. Yes, I said. That's exactly why I'll attend. He frowned. Eleanor. On my terms, I added. Claire called that evening, voice soft, hopeful. I know things have been hard, she said, but I want you there. It would mean so much. I'll come, I said. I wouldn't miss it. She exhaled in relief. What she did not ask was whether I would stay quiet. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Simone kept digging. Daniel Moore, my future son-in-law, was not as clean as Claire believed. His failed startup had not simply collapsed. It had been propped up with misrepresented revenue and unsecured loans. One of those loans had been taken from a private investor who expected repayment soon, very soon. The wedding, Simone suspected, was not just a celebration. It was a signal, a demonstration of family unity, stability, the implication that resources stood behind Daniel, even if they no longer flowed directly from me. I made no move to correct that assumption. Instead, I updated my trust again, quietly. The wedding day was bright and coastal, white tents, salt air, champagne flutes catching the sun. I arrived alone, wearing a tailored gray suit and flat shoes. No jewelry except my wedding band. Claire spotted me immediately. Her smile wavered, then steadied. Mom, she said, hugging me tightly. Thank you for coming. You look beautiful, I said. And she did. Daniel shook my hand. His grip was slightly damp. The ceremony was flawless. Vows, applause, tears. At the reception, Claire took the microphone. I want to thank my mother, she said, voice thick with emotion, for teaching me strength. The crowd murmured approvingly. I stood. The sound system hummed as I took the microphone from her. I'm honored, I said calmly. But strength isn't inherited, it's chosen. The room stilled. I wish Claire and Daniel happiness, I continued. But let me be clear. I am not part of any financial foundation beneath this marriage. My support is emotional, not monetary. A ripple moved through the guests. I handed the microphone back and returned to my seat. Daniel's smile never recovered. I left before dessert. The consequences arrived faster than I expected. 3 days after the wedding, Daniel's investor pulled out. A week later, the bank called in its loan. By the end of the month, Daniel's company filed for bankruptcy. Claire called me at midnight. He didn't tell me, she said, sobbing, about any of it. I know, I replied. He thought it would work out, she said. He thought you'd help. I closed my eyes. That assumption, I said, is what ruined him. She was silent. I can't fix this, she whispered. No, I said gently, but you can survive it. Andrew, meanwhile, took a different path. He filed a civil suit, not against me directly, against Prescott Holdings. He claimed I had excluded him unfairly from the business, that he was promised a future role, that my refusal constituted retaliation. Len read the filing and laughed once, sharply. He has no standing, he said. But he wants discovery. He wants access. Then we deny it, I said. We will, Len replied. And we counter. The counterclaim alleged harassment, financial manipulation, and attempted coercion. It included the emergency petition, the bank inquiries, the social whisper campaign. Andrew's attorney withdrew within a week. The suit collapsed. Claire came to see me 2 weeks later. No makeup, no purse, just her. I don't want anything, she said. I just want to understand when it all went wrong. I thought about that. It went wrong, I said slowly, when you stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a resource. She nodded. I'm tired, she said. So am I replied. She left quietly. That night, I sat on my porch and watched the sun sink behind the trees. I felt no triumph, only clarity. Because what my children were learning, painfully and late, was this: control is fragile. And when you try to seize it instead of earning it, it breaks in your hands. The final reckoning was close now. I could feel it. And when it came, it would not be loud. It would be permanent. I thought the worst damage had already been done. That was before Andrew tried to rewrite my past. The envelope arrived by certified mail on a quiet Tuesday morning. The kind of morning that makes you believe nothing significant is about to happen. The return address belonged to a litigation firm in New York I recognized immediately. Aggressive, expensive, strategic. Inside was a notice of intent to depose. Andrew was alleging that I had mismanaged Prescott Holdings during the 2 years following my husband's death. He claimed emotional instability, impaired judgment, decisions made under duress. He was not asking for money. He was asking for my credibility. If he could undermine my professional record, he could justify everything else. The petition, the bank inquiries, the lawsuit. The narrative would shift from greedy children to a tragic family forced to intervene. It was clever, and it was dangerous. Len arrived an hour later, the letter folded neatly in his pocket. "He's aiming higher now," he said. "This isn't about inheritance anymore. It's about legacy." I poured 2 coffees. My hands were steady. "Who's backing him?" I asked. Len hesitated. "Not who. What?" He explained that Andrew had been consulting with a private equity group looking to acquire distressed real estate portfolios. Prescott Holdings was not distressed, but if its founder appeared compromised, uncertainty alone could create opportunity. "They want you weakened," Len said. "Andrew is their access point." I sat back in my chair and let the full weight of that settle. My son was no longer just desperate. He was useful. That afternoon, I called Simone. "I need everything," I said. Every decision Andrew was ever adjacent to. Every meeting he attended. Every email where he tried to influence operations. Simone did not hesitate. "Give me a week." While she worked, I did something else. I called a woman named Ruth Kaplan. Ruth had been the chair of my advisory board for 8 years. 72. Sharp. Respected. Untouchable. "I need you," I told her. She did not ask why. The deposition was scheduled for the end of the month. Until then, Andrew stayed silent. No calls, no emails. Just the low hum of legal maneuvering beneath the surface. Claire called once. "He's not well," she said. "He's convinced you're trying to destroy him." "I'm trying to survive him," I replied. The night before the deposition, Simone sent me her report. It was thorough, ruthless, beautiful. Andrew had pressured junior managers, asked for early financials, suggested delaying disclosures. Nothing illegal on my part, but plenty that showed his intent to influence without accountability. He had failed upward for years, and now there was proof. I slept well. The deposition took place in a glass conference room overlooking the city. Too high, too clean, designed to intimidate. Andrew sat across from me in a navy suit that fit poorly, his leg bouncing beneath the table. He looked thinner, older. The confidence he once borrowed from entitlement had evaporated. His attorney began softly. Background, timeline, my grief, my workload. I answered calmly. Then the questions sharpened. They asked about stress, about delegation, about whether I had relied on Andrew during vulnerable periods. "No," I said. Andrew stiffened. They introduced selected emails, partial statements, attempts to suggest confusion. Then Len slid a binder across the table. "May we?" he asked. The attorney nodded cautiously. Len opened the binder. Internal memos, risk assessments, my written objections to proposals Andrew had championed, time-stamped, signed. I documented every concern, I said, because that's what competent executives do. Andrew stared at the table. Then Ruth entered. She had not been on the witness list. Her presence changed the room. "I chaired the advisory board during the period in question," she said. Miss Prescott was decisive, clear, and consistently accurate in her assessments. The opposing attorney hesitated. "And Mr. Prescott?" he asked. Ruth's smile was thin. "He had opinions," she said. They were rarely informed. Silence. The final blow came from Simone's materials, evidence that Andrew had attempted to position himself as an intermediary with potential buyers, that he had spoken about my eventual removal as a certainty. His attorney called a break. In the hallway, Andrew confronted me. "You planned this," he said, voice shaking. "You turned everyone against me." "No," I replied. "You did that when you mistook access for authority." The deposition ended early. 2 weeks later, the claim was withdrawn. Quietly. No apology. Just disappearance. Claire called after she heard. "It's over," she said. "Yes," I replied. "It is." I stood on my porch that evening, watching the light fade over the trees, and felt something loosen inside me. Not triumph. Release. The version of my children I had protected no longer existed, and the version of myself they tried to erase was still here. The final chapter was coming, not in court, but in choice, and this time, the choice would be entirely mine. The call from Claire came just after dawn. I knew it was serious because she never called that early. Claire liked control. Early morning phone calls meant something had slipped beyond her grip. "I need to see you," she said. No preamble, no emotional cushioning. Not to argue, not to ask for anything. I just need to tell you something in person. We met at a small cafe near Bushnell Park, the kind with uneven wooden tables and mismatched mugs. Neutral territory. A place with witnesses, but no history. She looked different, smaller, not physically, but emotionally. Her posture had collapsed inward, shoulders curved as if she were finally tired of holding herself upright. "I left Daniel," she said. I wrapped my hands around my coffee and waited. "He blamed you," she continued, "for the bankruptcy, for the wedding fallout, for everything. He said if you'd just helped, none of this would have happened." "And what did you say?" I asked. "That help, given under pressure, isn't help," she said quietly. "It's ransom." I looked at her then. Really looked. For the first time in years, I didn't see calculation. I saw exhaustion. "I didn't know how deep Andrew was in," she said. "I swear. I knew he had money problems, but not the scale. Not the way he was willing to burn everything just to avoid facing it." "You still signed the petition," I said gently. She nodded. Tears welled, but she didn't let them fall. "I was scared," she admitted, "of being excluded, of being left behind, of being the child who didn't act in time." Fear again. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I don't think I've earned it. I just needed you to know I'm done lying. To you, to myself." We sat in silence. The espresso machine hissed. Outside, joggers passed, unaware of the quiet reckoning at our table. "I'm in therapy," she added. "I got a job, not glamorous, but honest." "That matters," I said. She looked up, hope flickering. "I'm not promising anything," I continued. "Trust isn't rebuilt by confession alone. It's rebuilt by time and consistency." She nodded. "I understand." When she left, she didn't hug me. She didn't ask for reassurance. She simply said thank you and walked away. That restraint mattered more than any apology. Later that afternoon, Len called. "It's finalized," he said. "Andrew's matters are closed. No further filings, no appeals." He signed a non-interference agreement as part of the withdrawal. "And his future?" I asked. Len paused, uncertain. I closed my eyes. That evening, I walked through my house slowly, room by room, touching the backs of chairs, the door frames, the life I had built. I realized something then. The revenge everyone imagines isn't destruction, it's disentanglement. And I was almost free. It has been 8 months since the first Thanksgiving dinner, where my daughter suggested I might be slipping. 8 months since my children decided my age made me negotiable. I wake up now without dread. My mornings are quiet, intentional. I walk the perimeter of my properties once a week, not because I must, but because I enjoy knowing exactly what I still control. I read contracts slowly. I drink my coffee hot. I listen to myself. Again. Prescott Holdings is stable, growing even. I brought in a professional board advisor, not because I needed one, but because I wanted insulation between my work and my bloodline. Claire and I speak occasionally, carefully. She does not ask for money. I do not offer it. We talk about books, about work, About therapy. There is distance, but it is honest distance. Andrew is silent. I hear things, of course. That he moved out of state, that he's consulting for someone else now, that he tells his version of the story when it suits him. I don't correct it. The truth doesn't require my participation anymore. I rewrote my will, not in anger, not in spite. In clarity. Most of what I leave will go to causes that protect women who are quietly erased by families that call it love. Legal advocacy, financial education, safe transitions. Claire remains a beneficiary, but under conditions. Transparency, independence, time. Andrew is excluded completely. That was the hardest decision I've ever made, and the most peaceful. Sometimes I think about the woman I was before all this, the mother who believed sacrifice guaranteed loyalty, the widow who thought survival meant holding everyone together, no matter the cost. I want to tell her something. I want to tell her that love without boundaries becomes a liability. That age is not weakness, and that betrayal does not always come with raised voices. Sometimes it arrives politely, with paperwork and smiles. I didn't win because my children lost. I won because I refused to disappear. If you're listening to this and you felt that subtle shift when concern becomes control, when your worth is measured by what you'll leave behind, hear me clearly. You are not imagining it, and you are not obligated to surrender your life to keep the peace. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. These conversations matter, and so do you.